So welcome everybody. We haven't had an online session in a while, so I'm just excited to see everybody back here. And I'm going to hand over right away to Lynn and Laura Gluckman. Lynn is going to introduce her, but we're so excited to have you here doing a wonderful cooking demo for us. So without any further ado, ladies, it's over to you.
Thank you so much and welcome everybody. It's so lovely to see you. I'm delighted to be with Laura this morning, my friend and pastry chef, who's going to be teaching us all about how to make Pitikas, which are a Sephardi Chanukah delicacy, cooked not only at Chanukah.
Can do them Rosh Hashanah because they're drizzled in like the honey syrup, so honey Rosh Hashanah. So we can also do for both.
And we're going to have fun. We'll be sending the recipe out to everybody after the session. Just some housekeeping at the end of the session. We will answer all the questions. So if you do have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we'll reply to them after the session. So let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so for those of you who've got the recipe already on hand, great, you can follow along. It's an incredibly simple dairy-free oil-based dough. So we start off with half a cup of oil. Now it can be any oil. I prefer rice bran, but you can do canola, vegetable, grapeseed, whatever you like. As a pastry chef, I do everything by weight. Let's turn the scale up, but for those who don't like to do anything by weight, half a cup of oil, which is basically about 110 grams. Then we go and we put 1 cup of water, which is about 240 grams. Okay. Give it a good swirl. And it's literally just oil and water. Sort of. Yeah, literally just oil and water. And then we're going to gradually add the flour and bicarb. Now the bicarb is basically there to help you when you fry the pastries, give it that lovely bubbly texture. So with a fork, we don't need any fancy gadgetry. We'll put in our first cup of flour and literally just mix it in with the fork. So it looks all bubbly and gluggy, but that's okay. Next cup of flour, level of course, and plain flour. Okay, we'll put that in, and with that second cup, I like to put the teaspoon of bicarb, about a level teaspoon of bicarb. Just sprinkle that in, and again with the fork, move it around. So it's quite a soft dough. So we don't want, because we're going to be rolling it out, and because we want it as thin as possible, we don't have a thick, tough dough. And we also have a fairly long resting time in the dough. Right, last half a cup.
If anyone wants to see what the dough looks like.
There you go. So far, it's a very soft dough so far. We add our last half a cup of flour, and that's when we can just get stuck in with the fingers. Now, you don't want the dough too sticky. Of course, weather is a little bit of a factor in terms of dough. So you have to really watch it. If you feel it's just a touch too sticky, you can add a pinch more of flour, whatever you feel will make your dough not so sticky. So we're literally mixing it in the bowl, and it's a lovely soft dough. This is a touch sticky, so I'm just going to literally add a pinch, as I said, and that makes all the difference.
Because it's dough, you're working with your hands, you're feeling it as you're working with it.
Exactly. And you can see that it's a lovely soft dough, not too sticky. Okay, so now the whole point in order to get this dough nice and elastic is the resting period. So what we're going to do first is we are going to make balls of the dough and pop them straight onto.
And how do you know how big it's
walnut size-ish. You know what, you can always, when you come to rolling out the dough, if you feel that your pitika is particularly big, too big for you, cut it off, take a piece off. And literally.
And you wouldn't be obsessive enough to weigh each dough ball.
You know what, I used to. I'm used to, but you know what? It's the whole point of these Pitikas is their misshapenness. Their misshapeness, their bubbliness. So we are. Okay, so I literally just pinching off a bit, roll, and we're going to drop it onto the paper. Pinch a bit, roll, drop it on the paper. So you can see it's still quite sticky, but you can roll it, pop it on the paper. And we should get around about 30-ish balls, depending on your size. If you want to make them a little bit smaller, you want your Pitikas a bit smaller, that's fine. And in fact, what I am going to do is I'm going to show you slightly modern version of Pitikas in terms of if you want to make it for a really special dessert. Yeah, I have pre-made some creme patisserie, and we're going to make Pitika sandwiches.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's something just
a little different.
The traditional is to make your syrup, and as soon as the Pitikas are all done, you drizzle it with syrup and then sprinkle it with nuts. But don't limit yourself.
And where does this recipe originate from?
So my background, my heritage is Ladino Sephardic, all hail from Toledo, and a lot of them Spanish Inquisition left for all different parts of Europe. So hence the Ladino Sephardic language still remains, but the cooking has picked up influences from all the areas that the people dispersed to. Excuse me. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Good catch.
That's all right. So, your family, you grew up in Johannesburg?
No.
But originally in Zimbabwe?
In Zimbabwe. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, so now I grew up in Rhodesia. I've lost my voice. Oh, wait, let me show you first. So we've done little balls, and we are going to let them rest on baking paper because this is quite an oily dough. You will see by the time half an hour is over, it will have released a huge amount of dough. Huge amount of oil.
Right. Okay.
Which is fine, which is what
and
we
it's
want.
nothing to worry about. It's just
No,
the
not at
nature
all.
of the dough.
The nature of the dough, and you want that because you don't want the dough to stick.
Okay.
So we take this, we put it aside, and let that rest for a good half an hour.
Okay.
Pop it over here. And of course,
one we made earlier.
So let's clear the decks here.
Okay.
Get everything out of the way so that we've got a lovely area to do our rolling in. So growing up in Rhodesia, in Zimbabwe, they had a very big Sephardic community.
Right.
The Sephardic community, as any Jewish community, everybody was in everyone else's business. Food was what it was all about. So the grannies and the aunties and the uncles used, well, not so much the uncles, but the grannies and the aunties used to get together on any given occasion to do baking in the Sephardic kitchen, baking, freezing, and making sure that everything was stocked and ready for whatever simcha or celebration came along. So Pitikas were particularly useful because you can freeze them. So they would make them by the thousands, freeze them, and then literally defrost. You don't even have to reheat them because they're an oil-based pastry. They retain their crispness, and then just serve and sprinkle with nuts, my take, sometimes I do it with chopped up Turkish delight, which is wonderful. So growing up, we had all these beautiful Sephardic delicacies. And
how many people would stand in the kitchen together and cook?
Well, it was at a time when people had servants. So the servants would do all the washing up so that the ladies didn't have to worry. And they could be like 20, 30 women, literally all in a row. doing rolling. Everybody had their own take, their own recipe. Everybody thought theirs was better than anyone else's,
Of course.
But it was fantastic, and that's where I learned at my grandmother's kitchen how to make all these beautiful delicacies. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a dying process, but I try, and I've got 2 daughters, and I've taught them as much as I can, and they're interested. They love their heritage, which is wonderful.
And we weren't aware then, as much as we are aware now, of preserving a recipe in a family for the continuity of
posterity. Yes,
the tradition, the family tradition.
Right. Absolutely. Anyway, so while your initial balls are resting, let's get actually on and make the syrup, because the syrup does need to cool, and it's really simple syrup. We grab a pot, and in our syrup, it's honey, water, and sugar. So it's also not very technical in terms of the syrup. Now, also, another secret is if you put a little bit of oil on your tablespoon.
I always spray a spoon or a cup or something that I'm going to use with honey or syrup, because then it doesn't stick.
That's it. So put a little bit of here. Give or take 4 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. The syrup doesn't actually have to be exact, because it's just about taste.
Right.
Honestly, it's really lovely. I prefer more honey, and in fact, I think the original recipe didn't even use as much honey. I just love it. Okay. And then we will do half a cup of sugar and half a cup of water. Now you can double up the syrup. I should have put the sugar first. And you can double, and I actually use vanilla sugar, which is lovely. I make my own vanilla sugar. No, we can leave that.
So can you explain how you make the vanilla sugar, please?
So vanilla sugar is whenever you're using a vanilla bean. There. You don't have to use vanilla. You can use a cinnamon stick if you like.
Right.
You can use star anise if you like the flavor. You can use cardamom if you like the flavor, a couple of pods, whatever you like. So cinnamon sugar is basically, once you've scraped the vanilla pod, then the stick that's left, stick it in regular caster sugar. And this is caster sugar that I use. Stick it in the caster sugar and let it sit there. And the sugar rubs against the pod, and more little things are released.
And do you use caster sugar primarily for most of your baking?
Very much so. Very much so. Right. Do you want to just bring the camera on just a touch? So literally we are going to boil that for about 2 or 3 minutes. Good to go. Okay. And we're just going to watch it boil, because of course if you don't watch it, it'll bubble over.
Okay.
And in the meantime, while we're there, now I know it seems like a hell of a lot and a fair amount of wastage of oil, but you need the depth in order to fry. So a shallow pan, about halfway filled, which is about 1 liter of oil.
And there are no dietitians watching today.
And if you are a
dietitian, this is only for show.
Now, also you can see I've got a thermometer, in an old-fashioned thermometer. Right. You can use one of the beautiful digital style thermometers. I have one here. You can use one of these, which are great, but I find with the digital ones, you have to actually hold it, whereas with the old-fashioned ones, you can just leave it in. Of course, you want to get your oil to the temperature of about 180 degrees, which is a nice high enough temp for the pitikas to get beautiful and crispy, but not too high that they burn.
Okay.
So we'll get the oil going while we're waiting there. The syrup is also happening, and then the dough is resting. And as I said, I've made the dough before, so it would have had a good half an hour rest, so that we can roll it easily.
Put this back down so that.
No, it doesn't matter if it rests for longer. Just so long as the gluten in the flour relaxes, so that, as I said, you can make a stretchy dough. It's the same kind of concept with filo pastry.
Right.
When you're making your own filo pastry, you know, you want to be able to stretch that dough out, like the strudels and things like that.
Do you make your own filo pastry? Yes, you do.
I mean, sometimes I will take a shortcut. Sometimes I will take a shortcut, but it's not difficult.
No, it's not. It's just time consuming.
Well, that's it.
Time and patience.
Well, that's
and patience, because you have to be patient to roll it out. Very, very thin.
And in these times of COVID, I think everybody's had a lot of time to do
A lot of time,
which is wonderful.
A lot of baking, you know, cookbooks and people, companies that are selling bakeware and cookware have been so busy because people have had the time to be home and cook over COVID.
Absolutely.
And then that's why they have COVID kilos.
So that's why I want to be on diet.
Exactly.
Because now that, thank goodness, we are,
you
know, out of lockdowns. Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is really bubbling nicely, but I wanted to go a little bit
Okay, so can you bring that around so that everybody can see what that looks like?
And you don't even need to stir it with a spoon or anything like that. You can just give it a thing.
Can you see?
And lovely and bubbly. And that's about as far as we're going to take it. Once it starts really bubbling up, we just turn it off.
And I don't know if anyone can actually see, sorry, look, the vanilla bean, the little vanilla seeds in that.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they probably can't see it.
No.
Okay, good.
Like I said, you don't have to use vanilla. Any other beautiful spice will do. Our oil is happily, merrily moving up over there, which is great. Okay, so we take our little dough.
So this is what we made earlier.
This is what we made earlier, okay? So you can see it's a really lovely, stretchy kind of a dough. But we don't want it thick. When we rolling it out, we want it actually quite thin. So now I don't generally pre-oil my board. It's just had a little bit of oil on beforehand. You don't want oil and you don't want to flour because you want the dough to stick to your surface. And it doesn't have to be marble or granite. It can be laminate or a board or anything. But just try not to oil or flour it. And fabulous little rolling pin. This little rolling pin, I think, came many, many years ago from one of my daughter's Play-Doh sets. So I've hung on to this. But you can, from specialty cooking stores, you can buy little baby rolling pins. It's a thing now. So we are rolling out, as you can see, we are rolling and rolling and rolling.
Wow.
And you want it paper thin. Generally, they like the traditional is to roll it into a circular shape. But I find I don't mind the shape. Now, as you can see here, this is quite a big pitika because I've rolled it, because I have to roll it quite thin. So ordinarily, I would do about 2/3 of this size.
Right.
But I just wanted to show you, see, now watch as I pick it up. It's beautiful, lovely and paper thin. And that is what we want to put that into, oh, I'm tearing it. To put that into the hot oil. So I'm going to do it again for you.
That's incredible. So the dough is really very forgiving. I mean, you can, that's fantastic.
Very, you know, if you make a mistake off it, and it doesn't even matter if it tears the dough, because then you'll have a hole in your pitika, and that's fine too, you know. It's not, it doesn't have to be exact. And we can take it back again, re-roll it if you're not happy with the shape. This one's a little smaller, which is how I like them to be. So, you know, as hard as you try to get them into a circular shape, it's just not going to happen. So our oil is not quite ready, but I just wanted to show you the shape and the thing. And again, we can peel it right off. See, there's a little hole there, but don't worry about it. It's literally paper thin.
Great.
Yeah.
And then would you roll a whole lot thin and then
no. So you have to roll and put in, but it's such a quick process, this rolling. You saw it doesn't take long, and you're going to do some also, Lily. It's easy. It's easy. You can literally roll, pick it up. Normally, I would roll it over here, so that we move from one to the next to the next. So it's not too much backwards and forwards. Also have pre-prepared sheet lined with baking paper to drain. You don't want paper towel. You don't want your Pitikas to be too oily, so we also have that at the ready. Make sure that's pre-done as well, which we'll put here, and a couple of forks. We're going to use the forks to flip the Pitikas over. So you put them in and they bubble up beautifully. I'll show you. And then as soon as you feel the bottom side is ready, and you can lift it up and have a look, you take the fork, flip them over.
And how long do they take to cook?
Seconds. I'm going to show as soon as my oil is ready. Seconds. The oil is now up to, yes, almost there. So we're 160. So the oil is almost ready. I'm going to put an extractor fan on, but I'll put it on low so it's not too noisy. And then we will get going. So you can do this again. Easy. So just a little bit about my background while we're just waiting for the oil to finish up. As I said, so growing up in a Sephardi community, it was all about the food. I would sit in my granny's kitchen, watch her make all these beautiful delicacies. You kind of like learn by osmosis. And it was really beautiful in the sense that everybody got involved in the community. If someone was getting married, it wasn't just their family that baked it for them. The entire community came together, which was really.
And at what point did you start recording on the recipes? I mean, or did you grandmother hand her recipe book to you?
Well, she didn't hand her recipe. Basically, everyone used the same recipe, and it was just your interpretation of it. So I have all the traditional recipes. In fact, I'll show you this little book that I got. It's about 30, 40 years old, well used. And these are all the original Sephardic recipes in this tiny little book that was recorded by the Lady Sephardic community in Salisbury. So and all my handwritten notes on them. And this little book has been my Bible. So whenever my granny made a comment or did something,
you made a note.
I made a note. So I don't really have her recipes because she didn't really write them down. Everybody kind of like went from this standard. And then
I wonder in that generation of all of those ladies that stood in, how many of their children and grandchildren continue to cook.
I would hope many, but as I said, we're quite spread throughout the world. So there's not a huge, I know there are a number of the original from Zimbabwe, Sephardi community that are living here in Sydney. And I know there's all over the world, there are plenty, but not all of them keep up the traditions, but it's okay.
Because that's who we are. Food is very much part of our culture and our family and our traditions.
Right. Okay, so grab this out the way. Okay, all right. As always with any kind of frying, your first one is your tester, and it's not always the best one, but it's okay. All right, so now we're ready to go. So we'll take a new piece of dough, and I'm going to just take a bit off because I found that last one just a little bit too big.
And keeping the balls all covered
all the time. In fact,
so that they don't dry out.
Because I've used an absorbent type of baking paper, it's actually absorbed the oil, but you can see there's a little oil patch in it. Really, a little bit of an oil patch there. So,
and that's fine.
That's fine. Okay. Yes, absolutely. But keep them covered. You don't want the dough to dry out. Yeah. So I'm going to roll this up. Just be gentle. Okay, so we think this is thin enough. I'm going to lift it up and very gently bring it to the oil. Are we watching? Okay. Okay. Immediately it starts to bubble. See all the lovely little bubbles on top. Okay, and we're going to wait a few minutes for that to get really golden underneath. If you're not sure, just lift and check it. Still okay, still a few more minutes. Yes, absolutely. Lenny's practicing there behind us, I can hear. Okay, so you can see the edges now are going slightly golden. And when we turn it over, look at all those beautiful bubbles on top. That's what we're aiming for. I'll lift it up slightly so you can see. Sorry for those I'm tired. And literally, it was 30 seconds the first time. Oh, well done. Okay, wait, let me see. Okay, and we are almost done. Give it a couple more minutes. 5 seconds, should I say. You can throw that in. Go. Gently. Please be very careful. Don't throw it in, as I say. Just gently pop it in. And there you go. Off it goes. Bubbling beautifully. Now that's the bicarb working. Okay, so.
See, is it showing?
What's that?
Oh, I can't see.
Oh,
the
yes.
images.
It's all good. And then we pop it over there and let it drain. And Lenny's is happening here beautifully. And so don't worry if it turns, if it flips, that's absolutely fine. We're waiting for that golden edge. And we do. Ready for the next one? Come on in. Gently. Now you don't want to put too many in the pot because the more you put in the pan, your temperature will lower. So you want to basically try and keep just a few. And because they take so quickly to cook, all those beautiful bubbles, it doesn't really matter. That you're doing them one at a time or two at a time. Go nice and golden on the edges and flip. Oh, that's a beautiful one. Look, Lenny, look at those stunning bubbles. That's what we want. We want gorgeous bubbles. Absolutely beautiful. Keep going, dear. The little factory is happening. Pop that in. Beautiful. Lovely. So these are perfect size that Lynn is making. It's basically palm size, which is what you want. They are beautiful. Ready?
What do you do with your leftover oil?
So the leftover oil, unfortunately, yes, go my darling. That's all right, don't worry. Just open it with a fork. The leftover oil, I would normally take this oil and use it to make the bourbons, which are Sephardi donuts, which are very similar to lukumadis, which are fruit donuts. And I would reuse that oil for that because they're both beautiful pastries, both for Chanukah. But otherwise, then you would just dispose of it in a responsible way, put it in a bottle, and then put it in the bin. Don't put it down the sink, please. Okay, we're going here beautifully. And literally, you can see seconds in the lovely oil. If you're not sure of the temperature, recheck your oil temperature around about 180 degrees centigrade mark. If it's too high, then unfortunately they will burn.
What makes some of them bubble more and others not? Do you think?
I suppose it just depends on who got to the bicarb first. It's the way you roll it, some sides are a little bit, yes, oh my love. Some sides are a little thinner than others. nuts and honey, it's absolutely beautiful. Some of them will get nice big bubbles here, some of them will get little bubbles. It's okay. Now, Lily, remember we said we're going to do a little bit of a modern take on our Pitikas. So I'm going to swap over with you so that I can come and do tiny little ones. Because not only can you serve this drizzled with syrup and nuts, you can also convert this into a beautiful dessert. So I have pre-made some creme patisserie, also with vanilla bean, hence the vanilla bean in the syrup. If you wanted more cinnamony flavor, cinnamon is fine. Also, if you want to do a combination and you really want to go all out, instead of nuts, you can sprinkle it with cinnamon sugar as well. Are we ready to go, Lily? But we'll show you at the end. Okay, in you go. We'll swap sides. Okay, so now I'm going to do slightly smaller balls because I want to create a beautiful dessert that's slightly different. It's not typically Sephardic, but that's okay. It's always nice to be a little bit more creative. Take yourself out of that little, take yourself out of that little bubble. So we're going to create 8, because we're making sandwiches, 8 baby Pitikas, or 8 baby Pitikas. So we're going to create 8 little tiny mini baby Pitikas. So that we can make Pitikas. See, these are slightly smaller, a lot smaller than the usual. So you can go as quickly or slowly as you like. Just remember to keep an eye on your oil. So we've made some big ones, which are the traditional shape. And now we're making just the little ones. Are we doing them? And like I said, you roll them to literally a millimeter or less. Okay. Well, how many have we got there then? 5. Just do a few more. Yes, because we're putting so many in the pan, the temperature of the oil is going down. So they're little, they'll take quick, couple more, and we are done. And then we head up. Now, as I mentioned before, these freeze beautifully. So you can make them up to this stage, stack them in between baking paper. Are we doing that? Stack them in between baking paper, freeze until you need them.
And how long in advance can you make them? How long do they keep in the freezer?
In the freezer, they'll keep, I would say maximum about 6 to 8 weeks, not more than that. Yes. Now, if you're making them fresh and you're serving them tonight, that's fine. But if you want to serve them tomorrow, say tomorrow's a busy day and you're not going to have a chance to make them, you may need to refresh them, but you can refresh them in a hot oven. Literally takes 15 minutes in a hot oven, all on
When you say hot oven, how hot?
Hot, I'd say about a 160 fan, which is a 180 normal bake.
Right.
Beautiful. Look how stunning this is. Okay. Now also, what we are looking for is a beautiful pastry, but listen, that's what we want. We want that crunch. That is what you're looking for. So if you under fry them, they'll bend. But if you've got the right temperature, the 180 on your oil, and that lovely golden color, see all the beautiful bubbles, then that's what you get. Sorry, I missed it. It's all right. Okay, how are we doing? Nearly. Oh,
Just need like a few browning minutes.
that's beautiful. All right. So as I said before, so here's something I made earlier on. Okay. So we've got some beautiful, freshly made creme patisserie, which is pastry cream. You can make it non-dairy, or you can make it with cream and dairy like I have. Just to make it.
Can you explain a little bit more in your creme patisserie?
Yes, so creme patisserie basically is, I'm using as a basis 1 egg, 2 egg yolks, 600 mils of cream, half a cup of sugar. I'll give you the recipe, don't have to write it down. Half a cup of sugar, and shall we? Okay, and about a tablespoon and a half of corn flour. So we'll boil up the 2/3 of the cream. You will mix the sugar with the egg and the egg yolk. You will mix, then mix in the corn flour and the leftover cream, the 1/3 of the cream that's left over. And then once your cream, oh, and don't forget the vanilla bean as well. Love the vanilla. And then once the cream comes to the boil in the pot, you take out a little bit of the hot cream. Okay. Okay. Take out a little bit of the cream into the egg mix, pull back again, stir until it thickens. But I'm more than happy to share my recipe of creme patisserie, easy as, but I did make this the night before so that at least it thickens and cools down, because when it's hot, it's quite liquidy. Hot liquid is lovely to serve if you drink crumble or something like that, but if you want to make a sandwich, we are... How we do. Beautiful. Excellent. Can I stop?
Yeah, usually.
Okay. So with regular pitikas, we'll do the regular ones first. Okay. So you're going to put your first layer like that. Then we take our syrup, which is by now a little bit cool. Okay. And literally, I'm just going to drizzle syrup over. God, it smells amazing. And then we're going to, as much or as little as you want. And then we're going to sprinkle nuts. Traditionally, it's walnuts, but I have a few different options. So beautiful green pistachios, which are gorgeous. So you can do that. And if you really want to go wild, you can do pomegranate seeds or rose petals. We've got crushed almonds, which are also lovely. Or, as I said, the traditional, the crushed walnuts. Any always fine. Start off with that. Then you do your second layer. You come in and you do the next layer. This one, beautiful. Okay. More syrup. This one not. And more nuts. Now, if you, as I said before, if you are not a nut person, we can go a different route. We can go cinnamon sugar. So we can do cinnamon sugar. And that's beautiful as well. So it really just all depends on what you like. there's lots of different. Sometimes I'll do the syrup with chopped up Turkish delight. Sometimes I'll do cardamom sugar. Anything you want. I mean, sky's the limit.
This is so beautiful.
Yes, and then I would go about 5 layers up.
Right.
You know, you really want to make a spectacle of this because then people just literally pull off and eat. So for this, it's wonderful, and you can see all the syrup has fallen at the bottom. So layer upon layer upon layer, it's fantastic. Now we're going to do the sandwiches because we are running a little short of time. So let's get to the sandwiches. So we've got our little babies over here. So we're not going to do the syrup first. We are going to do patisserie first. How are we doing for time, Lynn?
Good.
Okay, so literally all we're going to do is we're going to pipe circle like that and sandwich it on top.
Oh,
That is it. That
How
is it.
beautiful is that?
And another circle here. And a sandwich on. You don't even have to have the same sizes. It's just all about the look and of course the taste. And you want to make sure that your creme patisserie is well and truly firm. Okay, then let's get, excuse me one moment, because I will use the same plate. Let's get another plate over here. Now, obviously, with this piping and with the syrup, you're going to have to do that just before you serve it,
Yes.
because the creme pat will obviously make it go a little bit soft. So then just before you serve it, we'll do the creme pat or the custard. Okay, so you can see here, beautiful in between. We'll do some syrup. As much or as little as you like, honestly. Okay, and then of course, whatever flavor topping that you want. You can do the cinnamon sugar, literally like that. You can do nuts, which is also very pretty. Anything, absolutely anything that you like. Or what you can do is you can introduce these nuts and cinnamon sugar into your creme patisserie.
Also beautiful.
Sky's the limit, girls. Skies
Also
and
beautiful.
gents. Sky's the limit. All right, so we've got the oil off. We can turn that off, boys.
Put this in front of us so that everyone can see how beautiful all of that is.
And we can do half and half.
Look here. Let's just add this in.
Lovely. Do a nice little photo sesh. Look, beautiful. How we're looking now. Shall we put some? Oh, we've got a few more here. We've got a few more. Let's put some
Just
on
going
top.
to
Like I said, you can do 5 high. It's
unpin the video
fantastic.
so that we can see everybody and have a chat.
Beautiful. Let's chat. Ask questions, everybody.
Laura, one of the participants here wrote that she has to leave early. She says, please ask Laura what her maiden name was, also her granny's name, because I too am ex-Rhodesian. It's from Jenny.
Oh, Jenny. Well, Jenny, my maiden name, funnily enough, for a Sephardic was Ashkenazi. And my grandmother was Camilla Soriano. She was head of the ladies' Sephardic community, a stalwart there, and she had a fantastic basis for me to learn all these amazing recipes.
Okay.
I vaguely remember her because we were very friendly. Obviously, I was from Bulawayo, but
Right.
you know, we interacted
Yes.
as founders, and we loved their cooking. We loved everything for Simchas. What did you say your maiden name was? Pardon me?
Ashkenazi.
Your maiden name?
Ashkenazi.
Ah, okay. No, I don't remember. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm proud of
To be
you.
able to share these recipes with
I'm
everybody.
so proud of you.
Everybody has seen how absolutely easy they are. to make a spectacular dessert like this. And even with these little ones, so beautiful. Okay, since you girls are not.
Oh, can you hear that crunch? Just exquisite. I hope everybody loves this as much as Ilana, who's hiding and who's going to in quickly and say hello. We've loved it, and we'll open up to some questions.
Absolutely.
If anyone has any
Anybody
questions.
can ask away, girls, ladies, gents.
The recipe, will we get that emailed?
Yes, we'll
Yes.
send the recipe out.
Yes,
We have
definitely,
it.
and the creme
And the
patisserie
creme.
as well. And I'll give you a para version if you want to keep this dessert para. Also, really easy to make.
Okay, folks, you can unmute yourselves and ask questions.
Fire away.
And I have to say, I see Vicky there. Vicky, remember me from the Monty, my parents, Ellie and Bessie.
Hi, Mom. My
That's
mother
lovely.
enjoys all the benefits of these when she comes to me. And luckily enough for me, when my mum comes to stay for weekends, we make all the Sephardic biscuits and delicacies together. She's a
Fantastic.
mind full of wonderful information, and some of the stuff that I don't know, she'll always say, well, Camilla used to make it like this. That one used to make it like that. And so, yeah, so I love having my mum here doing the
Fantastic.
old Sephardic recipes.
I mean, it really seems when you make these that it's great to have two people, one rolling and one frying.
You can, it makes it go quicker, it really does, but you can do it on your own. Like I said, normally I would roll back here so that I could literally just pass from one to the next and have like a little bit of a factory line going.
But it's so quick.
So quick.
It's really so
Seconds
quick
in
that
the
it's-
frying. Seconds in the frying, and like I said, so long as you get a lovely golden color like this, you will get that beautiful crunch.
And the lovely thing is that if you are time poor, is that you can actually make them in advance,
Yep.
freeze them,
Reason.
and then
Away
finishing just before you serve.
Literally. As I said, these ones also are the most beautiful little dessert you have ever tasted. Or it is a last minute. I'm getting one to the lips here. And last minute put together, but delectable. Honestly, a lovely little 3 or 4 mouthfuls.
And
like
beautiful
that.
for Chanukah.
Beautiful for Chanukah. As I said, this is an interchangeable recipe because you can do it for Rosh Hashanah as well, because it's got that syrup. But that's also a lovely dessert. It's probably because it's like a donut, you've got to fry it in oil and it puffs up beautifully. So that's also lovely. Any other questions, ladies?
Laura, tell us how you became a pastry chef. What was your journey to doing that?
Well, my initial journey was, I was in admin many lifetimes ago, and I used to make beautiful birthday cakes for children, and that kind of like was a springboard to making cakes and then making food and then starting my own catering company. And then after 8 years of running my own company, I decided I'd like to move in a different direction, and sweet things have always been my passion. So I actually took a couple of years off and I went to patisserie school and I learned the basics from scratch. So 2 years in pastry school set me up very well. Hence, everything is refined to measurements and quantities, not so much cups and things, but I do with these, a lot of the time with these recipes, I do tend to use the cups because that's the old way. And I worked about 6 years as a pastry chef for 2 companies, and then I decided after 20 odd years of hospitality, enough was enough, standing on your feet for very long hours. And now I do it for the pleasure of it and for the honor of being able to pass down and share these beautiful traditional recipes. So I'm very lucky in that that's been my journey to becoming a pastry chef. In the sense it's been technical, but it's also been learned over the years and passed down in heritage recipes.
That's great. Was the pastry school here in Sydney?
Yes, actually it was through TAFE. It was through TAFE and Ultimo. They offer an amazing 2-year course. I don't know if they do it anymore. I mean, I'm talking about 7-8 years ago that I did it. But it was technically, it was an excellent course for me. I know that there are a number of pastry schools in and around Sydney that if you want to get involved in, and it's not only hands-on, a lot of it is also learning ratios and quantities, so you've got to know your numbers and breads. I've gotten very involved with sourdough.
Well, pastry and baking is always a science.
It's a science. It's
So
how
you have
all
to be
the
very exact.
how all the ingredients react with each other. Absolutely.
Anybody else got any questions?
Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. Thank you, Laura.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. This has been a lot of fun. I always have a lot of fun sharing and demonstrating and with you.
And thank you, Lana.
Thank you, Lana, for being our tech support.
Well, on behalf of Great Women, I just want to thank all of you, Laura, for I am so hungry now. I cannot. This was cruel, truly. and I want to thank Lynn for being an outstanding facilitator and leading the conversation. That was wonderful. And Ilana, who's been behind the scenes. Ilana, would you show yourself, please? Come and say hi. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you ladies. This has been a fabulous, fabulous morning, and we're just all so grateful.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.